Despite Donald Trump's decision to tighten the blockade of Iran in hopes of forcing the regime in Tehran to surrender, it turned out that Iran has already learned how to bypass the US blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Moreover, according to analysts, Iran still has many cards up its sleeve to avoid stopping oil production because of the American blockade. And what exactly these advantages are and whether Donald Trump's blockade will work at all, that's what we'll discuss in this episode. My name is Alexei Pecci. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, please subscribe to the channel, like the episode, and leave any comment you like. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pecci News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, I'll start by saying that the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, dissatisfied with Tehran's peace proposal, believes that Iranian state institutions have already been destroyed, and said that the regime is looking for someone to put in charge. He says there aren't any smart people left for those roles. In addition, Trump predicted the collapse of the regime, since due to the blockade, Iran can no longer produce oil because there is nowhere to store it. Well, at least those were the words of Donald Trump, and now let's figure out if there was any truth to them. At the same time, in the plan delivered through Pakistani intermediaries, Iran proposed to the United States that they first agree on a ceasefire and the resumption of transportation and shipping from the Persian Gulf, while putting the issue of Iran's nuclear program aside for the time being. Of course, this doesn't satisfy Washington, and Iran is in no hurry to surrender. And on Tuesday, a representative of the Iranian armed forces said that the Islamic Republic does not consider this war to be over. Trump, however, responded by saying that the Iranian side is allegedly begging the United States of America to lift the naval blockade, especially from the seaports. Quote, Iran has just informed us that they are effectively a colony. They ask us to immediately open the Hormuz Strait while they try to fix the situation with their leadership, which I am sure they are capable of. But against this backdrop, the spokesperson for the Iranian government, Fatemeh Mohajerani, stated that Tehran is already using northern, eastern, and western trade corridors to neutralize the effects of the blockade. They say, yes, the Hormuz Strait is blocked, but we already have alternatives. But that's not all. According to analysts, Iran still has a lot of aces up its sleeve to avoid stopping oil production because of the American blockade. Well, at least for now. And this for now could last, to get ahead of myself, 2.5 months. It's important to understand that Trump is betting on the blockade for a reason. Oil is the economic foundation of Iran, and President Trump hopes that blocking exports, which will ultimately lead to a halt in production, will force Iran to make concessions. However, Iran has additional storage, and Iran is also trying to get a few empty tankers through the blockade to store oil during the blockade. Therefore, Iran may be able to withstand this pressure for some time. That is, for now there is still a place to store the oil. And this state of Iran's oil infrastructure may affect the regime's strategy since it's a deadlock. The same situation in the Strait of Hormuz creates political problems not for Iran, but for Donald Trump. Iran's idea is simply to wait out the Trump problem, even if it means taking a loss. That is, they understand that yes, this is a problem, production may decrease significantly, there is no export, or rather there is, but not in the same volumes. It's a problem, but it's also a problem for Trump, so it's a matter of who blinks first. And here analysts remind us that Iran has experience in stockpiling oil during the COVID-19 crisis. It's also important to pay attention to the availability of free space at other facilities, as well as efforts to expand alternative storage and export sites over the past 10 years. And this is where, my friends, things start to get really interesting. Let me remind you that in mid-April, when the blockade began, the White House claimed that Iran only had enough reserves to maintain production for just 2 weeks. They said, well, Iran will be able to produce for another 2 weeks, and then that's it. Collapse. At that time, Trump tried to push for a 2-week ceasefire. So, they said, what's the point of continuing to bomb? Because in those 2 weeks, Iran would have nowhere to store their oil, and they would just surrender. On April 27, Donald Trump stated that Iranian oil pipelines might not withstand the pressure if the country continues not to ship fuel, and they would just explode. Here is a quote from Trump. If for any reason, this line is shut down because you can no longer put oil in containers or on ships, then what happens is that this line explodes from the inside. If something happens, it just explodes. They say Iran has about 3 days left before this happens. He said this on the morning of April 27th. Well, tomorrow is April 30th and this deadline is expiring. And according to Trump's prediction, the oil pipeline in Iran should blow up due to the pressure. But somehow the prediction isn't coming true. Nothing has exploded there yet. Today, however, experts stated that Iran is capable of stopping oil production without a catastrophic drop in pressure at the fields. They also claim that the influential Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has other sources of income, such as contracts. Therefore, even if the US blockade turns out to be completely successful, and importantly, right now it doesn't look that way, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps will be able to rely on these alternatives to provide payments and salaries to its troops and maintain its position in Iran. This is critically important, and it will be enough. Well, now a little bit of math. According to Vortex, a company engaged in tracking and analysis of commodity markets, as of April 20th, Iran had 20 ultra-large tankers for transporting crude oil. These are vessels with a capacity of 2 million barrels each. Iran can easily repurpose these vessels for use as floating storage and continue oil production for about 2 months before Iran has to cut oil production. In addition, the company Vortex also estimated that as of that time, Iran had available onshore storage equivalent to about 3 weeks of oil production. As a result, we have at least 2.5 months of production before things become catastrophic. Even when you are under blockade, even when exports are completely shut off, Iran still has places to store its oil. In response to this, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated that production shutdowns have already begun. He called the blockade a double blow when combined with the sanctions. But I would just like to remind you that this same Scott Bessent stated that the US would never again extend the lifting of sanctions against Russian oil. But in the end, they extended it for another month until May 16th. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.